'Tis I, your old pal King Chuck, and today is the day that the revolution will finally begin. And it is beginning, folks. We have had enough. And, um, and you know, it's amazing that it's been a year since Donald Trump was reelected president of the United States by a bunch of people who probably got tired of, you know, who didn't want a a black woman running the country, and they didn't, a bunch of morons who didn't like having a transgender woman on their beer can. So they voted for Trump because he promised to get rid of the woke. And what did we get? We get higher grocery prices. We got people losing their jobs left and right. We have people lined up at food banks. We got this, that, and everything else. And look at what's going on in this fucking country, folks. We're all losing, folks. We have we're going to have the worst government shutdown in history. And Donald Trump, he's out partying at Mar-A-Lago with half-naked women in this stupid party from the 1920s style party. And when I saw some of the video that was coming out of the party, it kind of reminded me of what happened. I love beautiful women. Okay, I'm not gonna lie. I love cute gals. I'd rather spend time with a cute gal than other men, actually. But it's like, my cards have never been in my favor, tragically. And, I love going to strip clubs. And it's because back when I was a kid, it was like people bullied me and made fun of me. I want to tell you a sad story about my life. So, I was listening to Midas Touch today. And they played a clip of the First Lady of California, Gavin Newsom's wife. And what had happened was she said she urged children, she was going to teach her kids that if you see somebody at a lunch table by themselves, join them, because they would love to have a friend. But guess what happened when I was a kid growing up? I was a loner. And, Elk Rapids, what they taught their kids instead is, if you see a loner sitting at the lunch table, start grabbing their food. And that's what happened to me. It was funny to them. And, it made me not want to live there anymore. The reality, folks, is kids need, this is what happens when you live in a, very heavily Republican town like Elk Rapids. And, you just feel like the whole world is, kicking you in the ass. But anyway, back to what I was talking about. So, Donnie Boy. So let's get back to what I was telling you about my love of strip clubs. So what happened was I was bullied a lot. I think I told you the story. There was a girl at my school who had a really bad flatulence problem. Ironically, her name was Wendy, and she did look a little bit like the Wendy from the Howard Stern show and acted like her too. And unfortunately, some kids at school loved to tease me by putting C+W in the my school yearbook with hearts and shit around it. And I was like, man, I was going to promise myself that I would marry a beautiful girl when I grow up to tell these assholes, fuck you. And it didn't work out that way. Because what happened was my mom took me by the hand 8 days before my 12th birthday and made me live with a 300-pound woman who number one, she didn't like me, and number two, she was a prostitute. And the whole fucking town of Elk Rapids knew about it. And then when it got to my senior prom, nobody wanted to date me. So at the time, she was working, she worked at her in-laws' machine shop, and her one of her co-workers' stepdaughters, knew me at the vocational school I went to in the afternoon, and my mom had me hook up with her, and she was the whitest, trashiest bitch I've ever met in my life. It was like we didn't mesh at all. And my mom thought that, oh, you're such a cute couple. She was she was the size of a fucking refrigerator. So what happened was, I ended up, so this is what happened. This is why I started going to the strip club when I was in tech school. It was because I went to a tech school that hardly had any women at all. And it was like, it was the place for me. I started going to the Deja Vu in Kalamazoo. And, when I moved to Grand Rapids full time, that's where I went to every fucking month. And then, the years of not you see, the 2000s were a shitty decade for me. And, and of course, how ironic I'm talking to you about this right now, because one of the men who was responsible for making the 2000s a shitty decade died today. Actually, he died yesterday. And that man, by the way, that asshole was, of course, former Vice President Dick Cheney, the man who helped George W. Bush and his cronies get us back into a bunch of fucked up wars over oil and money. And of course, I always thought that George W. Bush was our generation's worst president, and nobody would ever replace him. But no, we ended up with Trump. And one of the worst things that happened to me during this time was I got into a car accident, and I made it. In long story short, I had to buy a new car, and the car I purchased. So I purchased a car. I thought, oh, it's okay. It was 5 years old, and it only had 54,000 miles on it. But it was a fleet vehicle, and it was not taken care of. And I learned the hard way, you never want to buy a fleet vehicle. They priced it to get off their fucking lot. And, what even worse, it was a reputable dealership here in Grand Rapids, Courtesy Dodge. And, I learned the hard, and they kept telling me, yeah, just go to Chevy on the Hill. Every time it broke down on me, Chevy on the Hill, a.k.a. Berger Chevrolet. And I learned the hard way, you don't want to do business with Berger when it comes to their service department. So, anyway, I ended up spending thousands and thousands of dollars getting my car fixed. And, well, I ended up with 3 credit card bills every month that I couldn't pay off. I was stuck with the minimum balance, and things were only getting worse and worse because of my boss's lack of, because my boss, I didn't get a raise for 10 years because my boss was an asshole, and there was no competition. It's like, he was a backstabber, he was a gaslighter, manipulator, everything. And because of all the money I was spending on other people's bullshit regarding the car that I ended up buying with so many problems, and Courtesy was like, yeah, that's not what we do here. Yeah, they claimed that they had like 100 some odd point inspection and it passed everyone. Yeah. Sorry, not sorry. Yeah, I've heard some pretty shady shit about the Benton family. They own Courtesy. Yeah, I actually tried to buy another car from the Benton family, and it was a piece of shit. Thankfully, I never bought it. But long story short, so anyway, because of all this, I had to give up a lot. because of all these unexpected bills. And meanwhile, my boss was going on vacation every other week. And he didn't give two shits about us, and I was this close to telling him how much of an asshole he was. But guess what? Another employee did that, and she got fired. You see, and that's what Donald Trump does. He tells hardworking Americans, you don't deserve pretty ladies. You deserve to be sad and alone after all the hard work you've put into your life. Because that's what Republicans do. They don't care about you or me or anyone else. And, even to this date, I'm 44 years old, and, Grand Rapids, I'm sorry if I'm sounding really sexist, is a lousy town to meet women. I mean, it's like, even at 44, I'd rather go to a strip club than to a church where, and I told you the story, I went to a left-leaning church many years ago, and, and a whole bunch of nasty shit happened. I got tired of the bar scene, and, and it's like, the only, and even online dating is a joke. It's like dating in general is a fucking joke. And that's why I love strip clubs. Because some of the nicest women I've ever met in my life were all strippers. And it's like, what's tragic is people love to put stigmas on these people. Like, oh, they're nasty, oh, they're immoral, yeah. Why don't you go fuck yourself and quit judging people? Anyway, so back to Donald Trump. Donald, and of course, the 60 Minutes interview the other night, it was edited to a pulp on TV. The actual interview was like 73 minutes and then was edited down to 28 minutes. And, of course, and Norah O'Donnell did ask Trump, so what's your take on, there was this guy's CZ that he let out of jail. He pardoned him, and he was this guy was, doing some really shady deals. And it turns out the Trump family is doing business with him. And, this guy does business with the terrorists. It's like, what the fuck, dude? You see, folks, Donald Trump is, we should be scared that Trump is going to do even more shady shit. And guess who's going to be his next victim? Me, you, and everyone else. And the only thing we can do is get out there and vote. Look at New York City. I'll bet you that Zoran is going to be the next mayor. I mean, I've seen some of the ads with, regarding Andrew Cuomo, and believe it or not, one of the ads that I did see was actually sponsored by, of all people in this God-forsaken world, former New York Mayor Michael Bloomberg. Oh my God. I can't believe he ran as a Democrat many years ago and he had 1 billion ads on TV. Fucking, come on. Really? And of course, he did have at least one celebrity endorsement, John Mellencamp. And I'm sorry to break it to you. I hate John Mellencamp. I mean, his music is just as boring as driving through northern Indiana on US 31. I've done it in the past. It's like, once you get on the northern edge of US 31, prepare for several hundred miles of boring. I mean, you want a bite to eat? Well, all you get is McDonald's. And, there's a couple of gas stations here and there. You might have to, there's no rest area. It's like, I'd rather drive on the expressway, but it's not a real expressway. But, but anyway, I never cared for his music. And I love the fact that he apparently has a really bad anger problem. Yeah, I remember. Excuse me. But you see, we're sick and tired because of not just, the problem with some Democrats, is they don't talk about what they will do as when they're in office. That's the reason why Hillary Clinton lost the White House back in 2016. She made no promises. I mean, it was all, let's attack Trump over and over again. And, that's the point, folks. Zoran, the reason why Zoran is popular is because he's a true leftist. He has said that as New York City mayor, he's going to go after the wealthy. He's going to make grocery prices cheaper. He's going to go after the fact that the rent is too fucking high. This, that, and everything else. That's what we need. And I'm hoping to God that if we are still able to vote in 2028, that we will tell the Republicans and the maggots out there, your time is up. It's time for America to heal. It's time to get somebody in the White House who actually gives a flying fuck about the working class, and and tell the billionaires in this country, look, you have too much money. Why do you need to have a fortune of several $100 billion while you got people out there who are struggling to make ends meet? That's not right. Let's rethink things, folks. And look, I know that some people out there are like, they don't want to see a transgender lady on a beer can. But you see, folks, that's the way Donald Trump communicates. That's how Howard Stern said it best many years ago. Donald Trump simply wants people to vote for him who won't ever be invited to Mar-A-Lago. That's how he's a snake oil salesman. Ditto with all these television preachers. They're wealthy because of the fact that, they pray after the poor. They pray after white trash who live in trailers, and they will say to them that, hey, if you want to live in a mansion, just give me your entire everything that's in your wallet. It works because God said so. No, it doesn't work that way. I'm not stupid. And unfortunately, the people who voted for Trump, they're part of they are a big part of the problem. They're gullible. But you know what? We need to stopped being fooled. Yes, I understand. Eggs were expensive because of the president doesn't have control of the price of eggs. But Donald Trump, with his tariffs, well, guess what's going on? It's turning into feast or famine. Feast and famine. It's time for a change, folks. And I hope that at least many of you out there voted. Even if it's for the mayor of your town, vote. Get out there and vote today. If you haven't done that, I am hoping to have some pretty cool results tomorrow. So, anyway, Trump, your days are numbered. Anyway, I gotta eat some chicken. Anyway, good day and good luck, folks. Have a good day. Talk to you later.